Greetings, it is me, Chase, and got another review to do. Now, in this one, I said I was going to do a review of episode 2, but I'm actually going to do episode 2 and 3. It's going to be a review of 2 episodes. And I decided to do this because when I finished episode 2 tonight, I just thought, there's not a ton going on in episode 2, so I just didn't find there's a whole lot to talk about, except maybe a few things. So why not just watch 3 and see if I can combine those into maybe a 15 to 30 minute review of tops. It really shouldn't be any longer than that because again, both episodes there wasn't a whole lot that I can think of to talk about. In episode 2, all right, so the big issue with episode 2, I think, is the whole thing with Sabine getting stabbed in the gut and surviving. And I think it's a fair criticism to the fans, to some of the critics anyway, that dude, like everybody else who's ever been stabbed, impaled by a lightsaber, dies, and Sabine pretty much just walks it off. And I think that honestly, look, I think it's a fair criticism. Okay, it's like, what? Come on, it is, whatever. But anyways, so there's that big issue right there, and I do think that's a legit criticism. All right, so now with that out of the way, episode 2 is a lot to do with Sabine recovering, and then Ahsoka and the general woman who I forgot her name again. Sorry, it'll eventually stick. But they basically track. Remember, Ahsoka goes back to Sabine's home, and it's a very slow scene. I was thinking about this when I was watching Ahsoka walk around, and there was just something about her demeanor in this entire series so far that's just really annoying to me, I gotta say. And it just dawned on me when she was walking around the scene where Sabine fought Shin and got impaled. It dawned on me. I was like, you know what I think it is? Ahsoka, she's walking around like really slowly and just kind of like constantly with this gazing look. And I'm like, it's like she's like walking around looking for something, but she doesn't want you to know that she's looking for something. Like she's trying to play it off. That's what it looks like. That's what she's doing the whole time. I just don't. I don't know, man. I can't tell if it's different. If it's Rosaria Butterfield. Was it Butterfield or Dawson? I think it's Dawson. Her inability if it's on her acting ability or if it's just the way the director wanted her to convey. If this is supposed to be Ahsoka investigating something, even though she doesn't really actually investigate anything, it'd actually be kind of nice. Like a lot of the things here are just rely on. It was interesting. I'm getting ahead of myself, but let me just say this. Let me just finish the scene here. Ahsoka is walking around in Sabine's place. She just doesn't really touch much. Just kind of looks around, and then this assassin droid tries to sneak up behind her to kill her, and then she just kills it. And then she goes, "I was hoping you would still be here." And I'm like thinking to myself, like, okay, first of all, why would it still be there? Secondly, how would you know if it was still there? Like, what? Like, okay, so you can go on a hunch. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that, I guess. But I just don't think that there's what indicator did you have that was actually a legit hunch? Like, even a hunch itself should be based on some kind of I don't know why I thought about this, but it immediately popped in my head. In The Dark Knight Rises, when Gordon is kidnapped in the sewers, and then he escapes via that that canalway, the one rookie cop kid, I forgot his name. He goes on a hunch on where Gordon's going to end up, and runs to the where the canal comes out of. Now, see, that's a hunch but it's not a random hunch like that has no support whatsoever. It's based on an earlier scene where he found a body of a young boy who came out of that same canal, and so he has this hunch that that's where bodies are showing up. Maybe Commissioner Gordon's going to come out of there as well, because that like there's all this talk about the sewers. That's where he went down to, and so what if he ends up down there? So on that hunch, he goes and there you go. There it is. He found the commissioner right there. Like, that's a legit hunch right there. What gave Ahsoka the hunch that assassin droid was still going to be there? And I certainly didn't get any indication that he was going to still be there. The scene gives off the idea that Ahsoka is going to Sabine's place to try and see if she might find some kind of clue as to who attacked Sabine in order to find them. And I guess the whole time she was actually hoping that a droid was going to be there. Like, she was expecting it to be there for some reason. And then, like, that raises another question. It's like, why didn't you just walk in there? It's sitting on the roof. Why don't you just walk in there and just kill it? You just waited till it was going to sneak up on you. Again, these are things I'm like, I'm just thinking to myself, when they're sitting in the writing room and they're making this stuff, and they're going, oh, that'd be a cool way to do it. It's one of those things where it has a cool look, but when you actually think about it, it's like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And again, for my writing, I try to think about that. Like, there's a lot of things that I would like to do that look cool, that seem like it look cool, but I had to ask myself, yeah, but would that make sense? It might not actually make sense. So I don't think it's a good idea to do. And so, there you go. But I was just going to say, after I got that out of the way, so Ahsoka walks around, and it gives the impression that she's sort of trying to figure out and investigate what's happening, but she doesn't touch much, really doesn't do anything. She just kind of walks around and mystically uses the Force to try and piece together the scene. It seems like, anyway. It seems like that's what's going on. She hears echoes of the fight that Sabine had with Shin. Like, okay, I'm like, is she using the Force to try to see? And to me, I just feel like it's fascinating to watch Star Wars, because like there's one scene where Balin takes the map thing and he puts it in this little altar thing, and it just comes right out of like a pagan ritual thing. There's all these pillars, stone pillars around, and there's this weird symbolic formation on the ground and everything like that. It's kind of like connecting everything to each other. And then the witch lady comes and she sort of like activates the thing, and it portrays like this big old map, whatever. Again, it shows Thrawn's exact location, and my question is, what assumption do you have that Thrawn is still there? That's the problem with a map that's supposed to find somebody. It'd be different, like you might say, if you said, well, it's not really a map. It's a map that continuously pinpoints Thrawn's location. I'm like, well, that's a GPS tracker, okay? That's not a map. So don't call it a map. A map is, oh, look, here's this place, and here's that place, here's that place, and then, oh, look, there's, if it's a treasure map where it's going to tell you where to go to some place, you use a map to find places that are static, that are stationary, that don't move. You don't use a map to track somebody's location. You don't use a map to find an exact location of a person, because that person's typically always going to be moving. Now, you can use a map to track somebody. That's different. Okay, maybe if this map had evidence or some kind of pinned location of one of Thrawn's active areas where he was, that's different. Okay, that would be legit. But if you're talking about this is going to tell us exactly where Thrawn is, I'm like, how would it do that? Well, it's constantly pinpointing his location. That's not a map. That's a GPS tracker. That's what that is. Okay, so anyways, that little thing out of the way. But like, she she does this kind of ritual thing she like brings it up with her finger or whatever, and she like activates it, and it opens this map thing, and it's like this cool holographic looking thing that just over the entire little ritual area. And I'm just sitting there watching the scene unfold and going, technologically, how would that even work? I'm just curious, you know. And like if I could just like, ask the writers, you know, how would this work technologically? Because we do that with everything else in Star Wars, pretty much. I've seen people talk about the science behind the blasters and the lightsabers and all that stuff, the holograms, the ships, everything like that. But what about this one? How would this one work technologically? This kind of holographic thing. And my whole point is, it just seems like Star Wars is becoming more and more, less and less sci-fi and more just fantasy, you know? Which, okay, I guess that's fine. I mean, the sci-fi is the idea of science fiction, and then fantasy involved, so okay. But my point is that there was a time where there was a sense of reality, I guess, realism to Star Wars, where I think these days, it's like what's happening to the MCU. It's like less and less kind of like a comic book kind of stuff, and it's becoming more and more some fantasy magic show, whatever. That's what it seems to be becoming more, especially with the Doctor Strange stuff. I feel like that's what happened with Star Wars now. And it's interesting to watch, and I don't know how I feel about it. But again, but that takes me back to the Ahsoka thing. Rather than investigating by using her mind to think and look at clues in the area, maybe look at footsteps and track footsteps or anything like that, you know, she just kind of just walks around and just does this thing where she's like, and I don't know if you're supposed to assume that that's investigating, but I'm like, that's not investigating. You know, doing a Sherlock Holmes kind of thing, like that would be investigating, and I'd be investigating in a way that's much more perceptive and interesting. Like that shows somebody, a character who's actually using their intellect. I don't see that here. I just see kind of like Ahsoka just going like I guess she's just using the Force, and that's my point here, is that it just seems like the writers struggle with creativity in this show, and so what they just do is the typical magic plug. Magic did it, you know, and in this case, the Force did it. Well, Ahsoka's just using the Force, and it's just helping her see what's going on, you know, and that's it. And I'm like, okay, so if you're gonna use the Force, aka magic, to just plug up any creatively bankrupt scenes, it just kind of shows the creative bankruptcy of these writers. It just seems like it to me. So that's one of the issues that I've been noticing with the way Star Wars is going these days. It's becoming more and more like magic based rather than sci-fi. It just seems like it. You know, now they got witches. Okay, that's interesting, I guess. I don't have a problem with that again per se, but I'm assuming these witches are Force sensitive. And maybe do that, right? You know, rather than just kind of like they're able to just do these sorcery kind of things. They're just really strange. I'm like, am I watching Star Wars or am I watching something else like Dune, or what am I watching here? It's just weird. And I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it. But anyways, one of my big gripes with episode 2 is Ahsoka, again, she kills the droid, takes its head, and brings it to Sabine, who's pretty much all fine now after just getting impaled by a lightsaber. But anyways, you know, I guess futuristic medical technology, I guess. Again, just chalk it up to, you know, that stuff. You know, just there you go. Anyways, so Sabine is taking the thing apart, and there's this scene where the head might blow up, and you know it's not going to blow up. Even though they try to make it feel like that's what's going to happen. And the tension doesn't work. It's just not working. You know it's not going to blow up. So, anyways, so she and inside the droid's head is, I guess, in its processor, or its, you know, its mechanical brain or whatever, it helps, like, she's able to get access to it and discover where it came from. And so Ahsoka, well, Sabine is still in the hospital. Ahsoka and the general girl, Twilight girl lady, go to that place and meet this guy who takes them on a tour of the place, and immediately you get the vibes that this is just some corporate, capitalist greed guy. That's all he is. And he's trying to hide his secrets, and you see them become suspicious of him, and it's revealed later on, not very long after that he is hiding stuff, and he's a greedy guy. He just wants a lot of money, and so he's the droid came from him, and blah 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 blah, and the Sithy people, whoever they are using his resources for their own efforts and all that stuff like that. And I'm just sitting there going, oh, that's typical stuff where it's the private citizen. Like I don't know if these people realize what they're actually like. It's the implication that the corporate world is always corrupt, which is pretty true. I'm not a big corporatism guy at all. But see, what people like this who write this stuff don't seem to recognize is the corporate. See, the reason why I dislike corporatism is because it is in bed with the government. It uses the government. It lobbies government politicians to give these corporations, these big corporations, unfair advantages in the markets. And they lobby, so they give money to these politicians to help them in their own corporate empires. That's what these people just don't seem to recognize, but they always just trace these corporations as if they have nothing to do with the government. So the general here, she's a public servant, right? She's a general of the Republic Army. So it's always just this whole, the military, they're never corrupt. They're always just sweet little angels who are just doing their duty and everything like that. And sorry, the simple fact of the matter is that's not true. It may be true. You can say it can be true that the average American soldier has a desire to serve their country, but their country is run by corporate empires who send them to die for corporate interests under the guise of freedom. That's what's actually going on. So this general, she may be an actual honest general, and it seems like she is in the show. But the problem is who does she work for? Well, the Republic. Who lobbies the Republic politicians? And you see, I think if you did something with that kind of a concept, it would have been so much more interesting. But I like this whole thing where they were trying to present the idea that Ahsoka and the general, the Twi'lek general lady, have to uncover the secret going on here. I'm like, I see this coming a mile away. We've done these story concepts before. It's the typical corporate shield guy who's trying to hide his corporate secrets from lawful, dutiful government agents. In this case, a general, and well, Ahsoka's not really officially part of the government, but you get the point. And I'm just like, see, we've done these concepts before. They're old, they're predictable, boring. Nothing interesting about that at all. Again, like I said, if it'd be cool if they did like a twist where the corporate guy wasn't just some greedy dude, and maybe he is a little bit, but there was more to him than that. That he's not just that. That he's a complicated character himself, and that he's not actually trying to, hurt anybody and work for the enemy. It'd be interesting. It was somebody else within his own network of people, his own enterprise, as it were, his own company, and he was like shocked to see that, like hey, look, I got my corporate issues going on and my own investors, but this is not what I was in, and he helps Ahsoka and the general capture the real culprits. That would have been a little bit more interesting, but no, we just get the typical. It's this guy. He's the corrupt guy, and they immediately put you onto him, and it's like where's the twist? There's nothing here we've seen this before. So that to me was disappointing. But when they find out what's going on, they chase after this ship that's getting away, um, that has the information they need or the people they need. Ahsoka chases after it, and then she ends up fighting this mysterious Sith guy with a droid right there on the docks, and it's like nobody seems to care. There's like this Jedi fight going on right there on the docks. Again, it's not a very inspiring Jedi fight. Nothing interesting really about it, and nobody seems to care. Like I don't know, man. If I was working on a dock of some kind of harbor, and these two people got in a fight there, I'd be like, hey, should we call the police? These people look like they were trying to kill each other. We should do something about this. But no, nobody does anything about it. Even when some kind of ship comes down and just unloads a payload on Ahsoka to try and kill her, and just blows it up, nobody cares. Nobody's doing anything. You know, it's right there in the middle of the dock. Nobody cares. So that was really weird, kind of strange. But so in the third episode, Sabine joins Ahsoka because they put a tracer on the ship as it was fleeing, which Shin was in. Okay, fine. In episode 3 is where they are tracking it, and they go to this other planet and get in this sort of dogfight with Shin and a squad of fighters, and so they're trying to survive these Shin's attack. And okay, I'll just say episode 3 got a little bit cool, a little more interesting. The one thing though, I will just say, I'm just getting tired. Like the thing that's keeping me from getting invested in this and going like, you know, is the characters themselves. I just like Ahsoka gives a little bit more of a, okay, we're in the crap storm now, a little bit more, but not like. See, I would just think, if my ship is being shot at, I'd be getting a little bit of an adrenaline rush, right? One bad hit could just, boom, you're gone. And so, but there's none of that. There's no heavy breathing. There's no, like, again, so you see Shin. This is why Shin is more interesting in this whole thing. She's like focused. Like you see her eyes are wide open. She's like, she's dead focused on taking them out. So that's like much more interesting. Like that's, you can almost like, it's like she's actually getting tunnel vision too. She's not looking to the left. She's not looking to the right, up, or anything like that. She's just keeping her eyes locked on her target, which is actually not a good idea, but it happens. It happens in combat. You get tunnel vision. You get so hyper-focused on what you're looking at, you forget about your surroundings. So when I say that that's not something you should do, I'm not saying that the writers shouldn't have had her do that. No, I'm actually saying that's actually realistic. Stuff like that actually happens. And when you're up there, I've never obviously been in a jet, and I've never been in a dogfight before, but I know this. When those things happen, when you're in dogfights and stuff like that, the adrenaline starts to pump. It's human. No matter how experienced you are, it's human to be scared, and the adrenaline to start pumping. When you watch police videos, police body cam videos, and they're in a gunfight, you just hear them. You know, like it's very easy to lose control of your breathing because you're getting this adrenaline dump. Your body's going into survival mode. And I don't see that, but see, that sense of urgency is important to express in the characters. I don't see any of that going on with Sabine or Ahsoka. They're really just calm and collected. Like Sabine is like, she's doing the rear gunner position to protect the ship from, like, to shoot back at the fighters coming in. She's just kind of like, you know, you see her a little bit of focus, but I'd love to see just like a, you know, just like dude, like, again, because you're in a life or death situation. This should be a little bit scary. Like, show me some intensity. Show me some that you're really, like, you actually, I guess you need to show me as the actors playing these characters. You need to show me that your character. You need to convince me that this is really a life or death situation. When you just sit there all calm and collected, you're not really you're not really doing that for me. You're not showing me that that's why there's no tension, because there's just no, the characters clearly are not in any real danger. So those things like that, during the entire fights, that lack of emotion, again, the lack of emotional investment in the scenes, still continue to keep me from being like really invested in what's going on. I would just like to see more of that. So Ahsoka and Sabine managed to get away. They worked together, and I think that was cool. Ahsoka's not good in the engineering department. Sabine apparently is. So when the ship takes a critical damage and it's like kind of like systems shut down, Sabine has to fix it. Ahsoka jumps outside in a spacesuit, which looks kind of weird, I guess, on her particular kind of race, species anyway. But nevertheless, she's does this just, I guess, a distraction thing. If by distraction you mean blowing up some of the ships, okay, that's fine. That's not typically what I've always understood as a distraction, but that was kind of cool. They work together. I like that. That's great and all. But again, I still like to see a little bit more of the emotional investment that you see in the characters. That there's heavy breathing. There's a sense that we could die here, and my focus, I can't, like, my 100% of my focus has to be on this, and if it's not, I just make one little mistake, I kill us all. I just want to see more of that, and I don't see any of that, and it just keeps me from being emotionally invested in the scene. That's what is needed to create suspense. Things like that. You see the characters, they're like, you would see Ahsoka if she's wearing the mask thing. You kind of see like her breath, because she's breathing heavily. She's scared. She's like, man, I could just get, I'm out here with little lightsabers against these fighters. One of those blasts, those shots can just blow me to pieces. I mean, just get in just instantly. Again, one bad step and you're gone. You're done. Anyways, but I was just saying this real quick. when they eventually lose Shin and the rest of her guys, they go down to the planet, and then excuse me, there's this there's like this big forest, and the trees are red. Okay, that's cool. It kind of gives you this idea that there's this like they're on a different planet. They're not on an earthy looking planet. That's kind of cool. I like that. So they land in this forest, and there's like forest everywhere. And Shin makes this comments as she comes into the atmosphere looking for them with her, her little henchman guy, and she goes, "They must have taken cover in the forest." And I'm just like, well, duh. I mean, what'd you think? They took cover right in the ocean, just plunged right into the ocean and just took on water and sank. I mean, duh. That was that one little comment there. I just thought if I was part of her squadron, I'd be tempted to go, well, no bleep, Sherlock. I mean, I know it's just I just thought that was a little bit of a dumb comment. It's pretty obvious they took cover in the forest. That seems to be the clearest idea. The problem is there's so much forest. Where would you look? And the other thing too, I'm just thinking to myself, like, don't any of these fighters and ships have like radar of some kind? You can't track them via radar. I know modern radar technology. I don't know exactly how it works, but I'm pretty sure in the future you can. Because I know in the past radar technology, I think it behaved at certain levels. So if you were low enough, you could drop under radar detection. But I'm like, this is a sci-fi future thing. I'm pretty sure radar is a little bit more advanced, where you can just like track anything anywhere it goes within a certain mile radius or a certain radius. I'm just thinking, why can't you just hit a little button, scan, and I don't know, you got this scanner that is able to detect metal and alloys and stuff like that, and just go, oh look, we got pinged right over there. Let's go over there. But apparently you don't have that on these fighters. So it's like, I just think sometimes, honestly, our modern jets could take out some of these Star Wars fighters, because first of all, they don't have any. They apparently don't have like auto targeting. You just got to do it all manually. Our fighter pilots do have that kind of stuff. They have radar. They also have stealth. They can, the F-22 jet can take you out with a missile before you even see it. It can be miles away and just launch a guided rocket, and you look up and like, what's that sound? Is that a? And then you're gone. And you never saw it. It just launches and then hits, and then it turns right around. It's not even on the horizon. So that's how advanced much of our own technology is. I mean, sometimes I just think, could our own fighter jets actually take on these fighters based on? It seems like they have very primitive technology, like World War II style kind of technology. No radar whatsoever. They don't have automated targeting systems. You got to basically do it all manually. By the way, Shin is flying in space, and she has no helmet on whatsoever. None of them really do. Typically, especially when you're in one of those small things, it probably is a good idea to have a helmet on in case you get shot out of space. It also reminds me, there's another comment that Shin and Ahsoka are working together to try and, again, Shin's in the back seat, she's doing the gunner thing, and Ahsoka is flying, and she's trying to help Shin get a good shot. And so Shin makes a comment to dive. And I'm thinking to myself, what do you mean dive? I guess just do this, just, I guess. Again, but typically diving, when you say diving, it's usually under the assumption that you're in a gravity situation, like in Earth, like dive as in go down to the Earth, like, whew. When you're in space, there's no ground. There's planets, but there's no ground. So I'm like, when you say dive, what do you mean by that? Like, that might have confused me. I'd be like, well, what, dive? Don't you just mean just, I guess that's dive. Okay, fine. Maybe I'm just making it more complicated. I just heard that and I just went, dive? Like in space? I guess that makes sense. It certainly makes a lot more sense than bombers in space. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. As we saw in, I believe it was The Last Jedi. Bombers in space, dropping payloads of bombs like, World War II bombers. And, first of all, the designs on those bombers, horrible. Because it's just like this like the vast majority of the ships up here, and the bomber sections are like just hanging like low-hanging fruit. First I would look at that and be like, well, that's an easy target, just shoot those things. And just blow the whole thing up. Second of all, again, you're in space. There's no gravity, so when you drop the payload, those things, where are they going to go? But again, that is a different subject. Anyway, so my reviews of episode. Oh, there's one more thing. Okay, there's one more thing. All right, in storytelling, I've always tried to say that there are two. There's two things I want to talk about. There are two things that make good storytelling: the plot and the characters. The plot development and the character development. These are two things necessary for a good story. There's a lot of plots in this show, not a whole lot of character development. So, for example, when Ahsoka and Sabine land in the forest, they shut off systems, so I guess they don't get detected or something like that. So, with all their systems shut down, it's just you two there. The droid's offline because he shuts down with the ship. So you're just sitting there, and I'm looking at myself and I'm going, well, this is a perfect moment for them to have a real character development moment, to have a real talk. And maybe one of them reveals something about themselves. And nope, none of that whatsoever. I'm like, well, that was a missed opportunity, because they both sit in their chairs and they just look at each other, and I'm thinking, okay, so maybe we're gonna get some kind of an interesting character interaction here. Maybe Sabine will reveal something about her past or about Ezra or whatever, and how she misses him and something that she and him did together or something like that. That maybe something that they just did recently reminded her of it. Nothing. And I'm just looking at this. I'm going. These writers, they don't even understand their own characters. They don't seem to. They just don't seem to understand them. And I don't. That's not good. I've got plenty of examples in my stories where there's like there's a break within the plot to now get to know these characters. And it doesn't completely sever from the plot. It's still part of the plot, but it is a moment in which you get to know these characters, who they are, where they come from, what drives them, things like that, things that they've experienced in life. This is how you get to know characters. This is how you empathize with characters. And I just don't see a whole lot of it in this show. There's just missed opportunities left and right with all this stuff. All right, so the next thing that I was going to talk about, now it's slipped, and it's like right there, but it just character development is lacking. So yeah, but I can't think of the other thing now that I was going to talk about. It completely just got away from me now. Trying to think. I can't just keep sitting here, right? This is kind of boring. As if I haven't bored you enough already. But yeah, the other one just kind of slipped my mind, and I can't remember it right now. I'm trying to go back and think. Character development is again just very, very poor so far in the show. And yeah, anyways, I can't remember it now. So maybe if it comes back to me later on after I do episode 4, I'll talk about it. But anyways, that's my review of episode 2 and 3. Again, I will say on a positive note, episode 3 actually was pretty good. It wasn't terrible. Like even though I had a lot of criticisms of it, it wasn't like really bad. So I didn't find anything in terms of like the plot that was like stupid. Like we saw in episode 1 and a little bit in episode 2. I didn't see anything that was like really kind of like, wow, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, So episode 3 was actually pretty interesting. Again, there was just that lack of the immersion of the characters in these scenes that they're in, and there's just like the character development. Now I remember. So in episode 3, Ahsoka is training Sabine again. She's picking up Sabine's training. And by the way, in episode 2, because Ahsoka doesn't want to train Sabine, and the general lady, the Twi'lek general, she asks Ahsoka a question. It was actually a really good question. She goes, because again, Ahsoka doesn't want to train Sabine, and the general lady goes, "Can I ask you a question? How do you know when somebody's ready?" I'm like, that's a good question. That's actually a really good question. Because she wants Ahsoka to train Sabine, and so Ahsoka's like, no, can't do it, and she's like, why not? Just can't. And then the general lady goes, how do you know? Ahsoka says she's not ready, and so that's when the general lady goes, can I ask you a question? How do you know when somebody's ready? And I'm just like, great question. That's a great question. And then Ahsoka answers, you'll just know. I'm like, what kind of answer is that? That's not an answer. That's the writers just like, we can't think of anything interesting about this. Let's just. If I was asking a question, I would have looked at Ahsoka like, what do you mean you just know? Like that's not an answer. Like that's. Yeah, but okay, so in episode 3, she started training again, and so for me, one of my pet peeves with a lot of these shows is the whole Zen thing. You gotta just feel it. They treat training more like a mystical thing. Like back in the '90s, that was a thing. Where like you had like the Bloodsport movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme, I think, and based on the life of the real life story of this guy, which is a total fraud. Uh, but like that whole the science behind learning to fight in that movie was just dumb. It's really dumb. But those are like back in the '90s. That's when all this mystical kung fu stuff was going on. Nowadays we know better. You don't become an incredible martial artist through Zen and through some kind of mystic philosophy thing. You become a better fighter by training. that, that's just the way it is. You don't become better at chess by you must feel everything. No, you become better at chess by training your mind and understanding patterns that you see on the chessboard. That's how I learn to get better. A lot of times I'm not even predicting what's going to happen next. A lot of times I'm just looking at patterns. I'm looking at the board and I'm going, my bishop would be based on the position right here. I think my bishop would be good right there. A lot of times that's the way I'm looking at chess. But there's definitely no mystical thing going on. And that's just the reality of things. And so in my story, that's one of the things I'm trying to change in all this stuff, in the fantasy stuff. Because I see it everywhere in fantasy. It's all over the place. It's just there's this element of mysticism going on, and I want to keep it simple, but also original at the same time. Simple and also realistic. So in my story, the magic capable people, masters, in other words, within their bodies have sort of like what you would call in anime the chi points, but I don't call them chi points. I just call them energy points within their bodies. They have them in their chest. They have the major one in their chest. It's like the nexus point. They have them in their shoulders, and in their elbows and in their hands. And the ones in their hands are different than the rest of them in their bodies because the ones in their hands are designed to expel the magical energy that they're generating through their body. So basically, a master, by the connection of their magica points, it surges through their body. Basically, the magic surges through their body. They also have them in their legs, in their joint areas, But so that's just kind of like a brief explanation. But there's nothing mystical going on about any of it. And I have a scene in the book I'm currently writing where the young Bastilina is learning to use her mastery powers. And she's like asking the question, I've never used it before, so how do I learn to use it? And then the lady who's training her goes, who told you had to learn how to use it? It's a part of you. It is part of what you are. In the same way the tail of a dog is part of what they are. You look at the tail of a dog or a cat or a squirrel, and they just know how to use it because it's a part of them. It's the same with masters. You just automatically use it. It's just part of who you are. And there's nothing, you don't connect to the force or anything like that. It's the same as when, like, another way to think about this is whenever I go to pick something up, like this mug right here, the muscles required to grab hold of this and then hoist it in the air automatically activate. There's no training to do that. Your body, your brain, you just know how to do it. I mean, a child doesn't, like a little infant doesn't, but a grown adult knows. And the where I move it, in my hand, the muscles necessary to do this stuff instantly activate. You don't even think about it. It just happens. It just does what it does. That's kind of the same thing with the magic in my world. There's no super mystical thing about it. There's actually a lot of science behind it, and it's just a part of who they are. And they just need to, like the lady who's training Bastilina in the scene. She goes, "You just reach out and grab it. You already feel the magic in the air. all you need to do is reach out and grab it. A normal person can't do that because they don't have within themselves the ability to detect the magic around them. But she says, you do. You have that. It's already there. You just use it. And so, I that's kind of the way I'm approaching the whole thing. Try to keep it simple and original at the same time, because I just don't see a whole lot of that. I just see, like, even Dragon Ball Z, when they did that, it's like when I got to the point where now anybody could use these powers. Gohan was like telling, forgot her name, who was future wife. Anyways, Videl, Videl. He just like said something like, you just feel it or something like that, and you just bring it out, and I mean, I guess it's kind of like what in the way I'm talking about, but actually, now that I think about it, it's probably not even a great example. Actually, it's kind of interesting right there, now that I think about it. So, scratch that one. But, but like, again, going back to the Star Wars thing, like Ahsoka's going into this philosophical conversation sort of thing with Sabine about using the Force. And to me, I'm just like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's just a lot of mysticism, there's some things that were actually made sense. Ahsoka talked about being disciplined. Okay, that's good. That actually makes sense. Being disciplined, but you don't see Sabine really putting that stuff into practice a whole lot. I did like what Ahsoka said. When Ahsoka just moves the cup and takes the cup with the Force, and she tells Sabine, "You need to start with little things." That makes sense. But there was still just a lot of, like, when they were doing the training thing, and so Ahsoka wants Sabine to sort of feel, so she makes her wear this thing that blinds her when she's fighting. She wants Sabine to feel. It's areas like that where I just go, okay, you lost me. This doesn't help somebody become better. If you're trying to train somebody you don't have to be a Jedi to learn to sword fight. Okay, it's not a Jedi specialty. So when you're training with swords and hand-to-hand combat, you don't put something over somebody's face so they can't see the other person, which Sabine makes a legit argument for. Like, yeah, that's because I can't see you. And Ahsoka's like, that's the whole point. And I'm like, you got to kind of see your opponents to know where they are, to see what moves they're going to make. It's kind of important. I can't think of any actual combat situation where it's a good idea to be blinded. Now, I'm sure that stuff like that happens. Okay, I get that. That stuff happens. But you don't train blindfolded. The whole point of training, combat training and sword training, so that you're building muscle memory, so that like you're conditioning the mind to react to certain things. Again, just like with chess, when you're training, or I guess when you're learning chess and you're playing chess, you see the patterns and your brain just clicks, and it's like it goes, oh, this is what we do in this situation. It's the same thing in combat. Training in combat is not about learning, if they come at you like this, you grab the arm and you just and do this weird stuff. No, it's an instant reaction thing. When you see that fist coming, your body and your brain it goes into fight mode, because you've conditioned your mind through training to do that. That's what real training's like. So anyways, obviously I went longer than I intended to go. Maybe I should stop saying these are going to be 30 minutes, but there you go. There's my review of episode 1 and 2 of the Ahsoka series. It gets kind of interesting. It's not terrible. Episode 3, it's not really all terrible, but again, there's still some things about it that just kind of go, again, I'm just like, it could be better. It could be better. So there you go. All right, so episode 4, maybe 5, depending on how interesting episode 4 is, what's going on in episode 4, will hopefully come tomorrow. So there you go. I will talk to you all later. Bye.